Chris, welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. I'm really excited to interview you today. I mean, the online presence and the Rockstar lifestyle, accompanied or mixed with business and making business as much fun as you do, is refreshing. I know you're going to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, but the whole CEO with a Mohawk is a clear, hey, who the heck is this man? He's a rock star. What is he doing? But I can't find any videos of you online rocking out other than in front of business people. So it's a little bit of a, you sit there thinking, okay, the rock star music, the rock star's there, and then there are all these business people. So an interesting crowd, to say the least. Now, just a very quick intro for those that are watching. Chris, originally from the UK. Geordie?
Yes.
Yeah. Love Newcastle. In fact, one of my clients has just moved their head office over there, and yeah, it's a lively nightlife. Should I say?
It's one word for it, yes.
I won't go into detail. I'm going to leave it right there. But with your history, I mean, you in 8 years alone, you've gone from starting up this business to being the world's #1 LinkedIn kind of go-to person for anybody who wants success on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you've got several businesses that you've started up. You've had entrepreneurial media businesses and marketing businesses in the UK, globally, now based in Singapore. And it just looks like you keep going on and on and on and creating. And there's a whole list of things, but I think it's in excess of 58,000 followers on LinkedIn, 1,600 recommendations. And most people get a challenge to get maybe 4 or 5. So that's one of the questions I'm going to have for you today is like, what the heck? So obviously you're doing a great job. And by the sounds of it and by the looks of it, you absolutely love what you do.
Oh, of course. You have to have a passion. As entrepreneurs, you have to have a passion for what you do, haven't you?
Absolutely. So, you've 4 books as well.
Yep. 4 best-selling books, not just books. 4 best-selling books.
I knew there was going to be a correction there. Fantastic.
Come on. This bit up here is the bit, international best-selling book. Not just any book, best-selling.
Absolutely. And the thing is, they're all on. They're not just books about your life story, and they're actually books on what you're an expert on, and you go and you give so much advice out there. It's almost like you put it all out, and yet you can still guide people and build those profiles and make their lives so much easier. So what I'd like to do today is, we've got, as I mentioned to you before we started the interview today, is there are definitely two schools of thought, and there'll be two different people in the audience today. We'll have those that are, coming out of lockdown, still trying to figure out how they bounce back. Maybe, super successful before, but this is proper hit them and they need to restart. So financially, they'll be in a challenge. Then you've got the others who have absolutely thrived during lockdown, seen opportunity and just skyrocketed. And again, both of those need advice on how they utilize this platform effectively. So I have several questions, but I also know that you've got 5 things that you're going to give us to make us as you put it, LinkedIn rock star. Is that right?
Yes, as the book says, how to become a LinkedIn rock star.
I mean, I just love the language that you use. Is let's not just go on LinkedIn and do some cool stuff. It's like absolutely world #1. You don't seem to do anything mediocre kind of lukewarm.
Don't do anything by halves. No, I've been married 4 times as well.
That's for another interview. I'm sure there's a book brewing over there as well. Wow. Okay. I'm gonna stick to the subject, I think, because that could get me going off on an interesting one. I'll talk to you about that afterwards because I've got some interesting, for another time.
Go for it.
So, with LinkedIn, as I mentioned, obviously we've got two different schools of thought. Now, yeah. I've had so many people reach out to me because of the fact that they knew I was interviewing you, and it was interesting. It's kind of there's a conflict of what people believe LinkedIn is all about. So, tell me your thoughts, because one of the things that I get often is, no, don't like LinkedIn. It's a pitch fest. Everybody who reaches out to me, all they're doing is they're trying to sell. And I don't even know who they are. And it's just for recruiters and people trying to sell you stuff. It's not to do business. It's not to build your network. I mean, what do you say to
I mean, there's an aspect to that on LinkedIn, but it's basically a personal branding platform. If I Google you, the first thing that comes up is your LinkedIn profile, whether you like it or not, because it's trusted. Facebook, Twitter, none of those are trusted. Google doesn't trust them. You and I don't trust them. Nobody trusts them. LinkedIn, trusted. So what? As a result of that, Google puts that at the top because it only puts things like them and Wikipedia and your own website top of the rankings because it puts trusted things up there. So when you go there and you click on your profile, the first thing that you see when you're about to meet somebody or employ somebody or invest in somebody is their LinkedIn profile. It's about personal branding. If your personal branding's terrible, then they get a negative impression. If it's very positive, they get a very positive impression. So it's all about personal branding. It's also, I would argue, the number one business content marketing platform, the content sharing platform. So yes, sales is part of that, of course. Sales is part of everything. If you go and meet someone in a bar or a pub, there's sales aspects there. But LinkedIn's about content, it's about social selling, it's about personal branding, it's about networking, especially now. The number one place to network in the world at the moment is on LinkedIn. So you have to enhance your personal brand on LinkedIn because your personal brand now lives on LinkedIn too, because you can't meet people in reality. You can't go to conferences, you can't travel the world, you can't go to different places to meet people. It's all online, it's all on Google, it's all on LinkedIn.
So there are so many questions just out of what you just said right there, because 100% it's the place to go and network. But there's the right way and then the wrong way. What are the typical big kind of faux pas that you see on LinkedIn?
I mean, the biggest faux pas is not having a complete profile. I mean, literally, I spend half my time just taking the mick out of people basically based on their profiles being completely incomplete, or they put a no background picture, or you can't read the background picture because their face is on the top of it, or their face is a Facebook picture, or a wedding picture, or their arms around somebody and it's been cut off because they want to have a picture of themselves. And you think, why would you do that? This is professional. This is about your business. This is about your personal brands, about your longevity of you want investors or employees or clients, and you've got your arm around somebody and it's been cut off and you think that's professional? That's a negative impression, not a positive impression. So it's all about completing your profile. That's the number one thing that people get wrong.
So when you say complete your profile, I know, up until probably 6-7 months ago, I had two profiles. One that I didn't even realize was still there from 10 years ago. But when you go onto LinkedIn, and if you spend enough time there, it will, it tells you these are the things that are missing and, the things that you should do.
Yeah.
In order to get what you class as a complete profile, what's the best way to go about that? Is it following the LinkedIn kind of little steps?
I mean, it tells you, they tell you what to do. If you see a blue thing, fill it with something. Basically, it's simple that you've got the featured section, fill it with something. You've got basically experience and then media, fill it with something. I mean, literally, it's a kind of joined up by numbers, kind of paint by numbers kind of thing. You open up the experience, it says, what did you do? Who did you do it for? Add a link in, add a document in. I mean, it tells you what to do. I mean, literally, if you just fill it out by filling in the gaps, by going, has LinkedIn asked me to do this? Yes, fill it in. LinkedIn asked me to do this? Yes, fill it in. And then look at someone's profile like yours or mine or someone who actually has filled in a profile, or watch my videos or read any of my books or listen to my books on Spotify or Apple Music. And we basically basically take you through what you should actually do. But that's the very basic stuff that people get completely wrong. So it's basically do that first, because that's the thing that people will find when they Google you. And that's a major point.
So, I mean, what percentage of people would you say, just off the cuff, not that you have any cuffs, see what I did there? No. Anyway.
Too hot for cuffs in Singapore.
I'm coming to that. What percentage of people do you find have incomplete profiles? Because I'm seeing.
Oh, I would say the vast majority. The vast majority. I would say 90%, 90 to 95% have incomplete profiles. I have one of my scripts which I send out to people, and it literally says there are 10 things wrong with your profile, and I send it to 100 people, guaranteed to know that every single one of those 10 people, these 100 people, will have 10 things wrong with their profile. You can be a LinkedIn expert. I get people talking about, I don't need you. I have a team on this. Oh, really? You have a team, do you? Oh, wow, this is wrong and this is wrong. What are your team doing? Are they on holiday for the last 6 months? Because you don't have this, you don't have this, and your link doesn't work, and this doesn't work. There's no media here. You've got no recommendations. Your background picture can't be seen on the mobile, and so forth and so forth. Everyone's got 10 things wrong. Even if it's like 10 things wrong with their content marketing strategy, they don't post, they haven't posted, they reshare, they don't tag, they don't use hashtags. I mean, literally, there are so much things wrong with people's LinkedIn profiles. This is why I have a business, because literally I can take apart every person's profile and say, you're missing this.
That must have been 1.5 minutes, but you gave like, it's like you're on supercharged. And this is the end of your day, no?
It's the end of my day, yes. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning, went for a 25-kilometer cycle before I started work, yes.
I want to know what you're on, man, because this is your energy levels. And, really, I think people need to, just rewind and replay those last 2 minutes and just listen very carefully, because I see this on a daily basis where, CEOs, CTOs, entrepreneurs, and I land on their LinkedIn profile and I'm like, no, this guy doesn't have a business. And it's just shocking that, and they don't even have to take the time, especially if you're at that level. You've got PAs, you've got assistants, you've got a
communication team. That's why we don't work with
marketing teams. It's like,
they normally have a communications team or marketing team. And normally when I approach the CEO of a big multinational, they say, oh no, I've got a communication team, look after my profile. I go, really? Have you looked at your profile? There's no company page, or the company page you're attached to is created by you. Yeah. And I see that all the time. It's a little gray box because they've added Asia to it, or they've added America to it, or Europe, and that doesn't exist because the main Microsoft page is over here, and they've added Microsoft Asia. That's not a company page called Microsoft Asia, and that's why it's a little gray box. This looks so unprofessional. You work for a big multinational, and you're not even connected to your own page, and you're the CEO of the company, but you've got a communications team allegedly kind of looking after your profile, which obviously clearly they're not doing.
Is that maybe like a strategic thing, how to fly under the radar and not get noticed, or?
Well, they're succeeding because that combined with not posting, which is what 95% of people do not do on LinkedIn, basically enables you to not get noticed, because LinkedIn actually promotes people who are active. If you're not active, don't have a complete profile, LinkedIn will push you down the search rankings. If you're active, you post, you have a complete profile, LinkedIn push you up the search rankings. So it's gamified. It rewards you for doing things.
That's an interesting one, because I had somebody ask me this week. They were saying, I'm connecting on LinkedIn, but I sent out like not a lot, maybe 4 or 5, and it's saying that I'm like a super searcher, and I'm like, okay, how much time do you spend on LinkedIn? And they're like, well, I just search and I try and connect with people, but they're not adding any value. They're not posting anything. Correct. They're not engaging. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I found on LinkedIn is they reward those who add value.
Yeah, totally.
So while I ask and make that statement, what does value look like to LinkedIn?
I mean, value is literally the reason why I have all my tips in my book, and you can go away and do this yourself, is classic social selling. I show my expertise, I give away content. This is social selling, doing a podcast, giving it away to your audience, giving it away to my audience. This is passing on tips so people can go and do it themselves. Classic social selling. So giving value is part of it, but it's also talking about yourself, getting people to know you. That's what I mean about networking. That's why I do lots of posts about myself within a business context, within some kind of context where I can justify it in terms of my personal personal branding, because basically, if I want people to engage with me, to trust with me, they have to get to know me. If all I do is post stuff about black marketing and they don't do any personal posts, but go, well, I don't know the guy. What's he on about? You know, why does he do all the things he does? People got to know you. Like I got to know you by having a chat with you, by reading you, by watching your podcast, by listening to you. And that's how people build relationships. And people, as you know, people do business with people they trust. People do business with people they like.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to ask about you, because somebody asked me, you know, is the Mohawk the brand, or is that just a past life thing? And
it's very, very real, but it's a catalyst. It's an icebreaker. When I go into any room, I could go on a plane, I could be in any country, people would always, oh, you're Chris Reed, you're the Mohawk guy, you're the LinkedIn guy. And they connect Mohawk with LinkedIn, even to the extent, I kid you not, this week I've had 2 people say, I met you about 2 or 3 years ago, couldn't remember your name, but I put in Mohawk into LinkedIn and you came up #1, and I contacted you as a result of that. Literally, people tell me that all the time. They just put in Mohawk into LinkedIn and it comes up. It's part of my personal branding. But it's also a way to create a conversation, because I say, what's your Mohawk? Every single person's got a Mohawk. The USP makes them stand out. That elevator pitch. What's your elevator pitch? Put it on LinkedIn. Whatever it is, everyone's got one.
So you just took the words right out of my mouth, because I was going to say, you know, in several of your videos, you talk about other people's Mohawks, and clearly there is no, I mean, I have a reflection, clearly, because of the office lights. But, you know, if you could define what makes a good Mohawk or elevator pitch, or
it's that standout thing. So, for example, there's a fantastic entrepreneur called Karen Jacobson in Sydney, and her USP, and she came on stage doing this, was she's the GPS girl. So basically, she's on 2.5 billion devices going recalculating, and she puts that on her LinkedIn. She's the GPS girl. In her headlines, she's the GPS girl. But that's not what she does. That's just a way to create a conversation. She's a coach and a speaker and a songer and basically a leader, and she does this and that and the other. But you know her for the GPS girl, and I know her, and I don't remember anybody else at that conference, but I remember Karen.
And that's it, is you know, standing out somehow.
Yeah.
Making a noise in the crowd, or above the crowd, anyway.
Totally. And everyone's got something. And like literally, I have never met anybody where I can't get that nugget out of them. Say, what do you do? What do you do offline? Where do you spend your time? What are your passions? What are you known for? And people say the most curious things. Oh, I've got 17 books, but none of them on your LinkedIn. Or I appeared in this particular, you know, TV series. That's not on your LinkedIn. Or I appeared on film and none of it's on your LinkedIn. You know, so it's all about kind of like, you know, what are you famous for? Some people are actors, for example. They're not on their LinkedIn. And some people are basically serial entrepreneurs. And again, it's not on their LinkedIn. So it's like, put these things on your LinkedIn, because it's about personalizing, about humanizing you. It's about telling people about a bit more about your character, about your personal brand. A personal brand has values, just like any kind of product has.
Yeah.
It's got different parts of it. And you can't ignore the personal stuff beyond your business, because that's part of your personal branding too.
So a lot of people will, or assume, and I've seen this relax over lockdown, because lockdown, it was very prim and proper. And the masks, I've noticed, have come down, because pre-lockdown, you know, it wasn't okay to be having the kids scream in the background while you're busy or have things go wrong, or you know, all the faux pas that happen, and the human element wasn't as visible for me anyway pre-lockdown. And you know, I've seen lockdown as a gift, because I've seen LinkedIn make a bit of a shift where it's been able to lower the facade and really give you a bit of a connection with a real person.
It's an
And there's
equalizer.
this,
It's been an equalizer. It's basically everyone's on that Zoom call with things in the background. Their hair's not quite done. They're not quite dressed properly. They're basically making a cup of coffee, spilling something. Their kids are coming in or whatever. The husbands or the wife's coming in, for example, knocking on the door, whatever, because everyone's now in that situation. So it's an equalizer. It's also why our business is doing very, very well, because basically people are realizing their personal brands now online, and it's an equalizer. I can't go to an event in San Francisco, but neither can anyone else at the moment. So I can get business in San Francisco or London or Madrid or Zurich because I have the same chance as somebody else in that city, because they can't go to any events at the moment. So basically, it's an equalizer. If you're basically a proactive on LinkedIn, you will get success.
so I'm trying to stay structured, but this is not working. I tell you, but it's all good because there's tons of value here. One of the things I noticed just on your profile as an example, because you mentioned now about, we're all in the same boat. We can't travel, yet our ability to travel has increased and communicate because boundaries have disappeared. And it's weird because it's always been like that, but it's taken a pandemic to all of a sudden go, hey, the stuff that we had 10 years ago, maybe it's a cool idea to have video conferencing. And on your profile, if you look at your experience, I've noticed you're in every major city around the world.
Correct.
Why is that?
So I gamify it. So basically what I figured out was that LinkedIn's a bit like Google. If you have google.co.uk, you only get found in UK. If you have google.com, you get found everywhere. So what I worked out with LinkedIn is that basically LinkedIn is basically, if you put only Singapore down, you get found in Singapore. So I put in there all the cities of the world where I do business. So it says Singapore, it says Jakarta, it says Hong Kong, it says KL, it says London, it says San Francisco, it says New York. And I know if I get basically searched in those places, it will come up. So basically, when people say to me, I only do business in the UK or in Sydney, the worst ones are in Australia. I go to Sydney, I go to Australia, which takes me 8 hours to get there. I pitch people in Sydney and I say, where do you want to hit? Do you want to hit Indonesia? Do you want to hit China? No, I want to hit New South Wales. And they go, really? Is that all you want to hit? New South Wales? Well, maybe Melbourne, maybe Victoria. So what about Perth? Oh, no, Perth's too far. It's like, huh? How can Perth be far? It's like 3.5 hours away. I've traveled 8 hours to get to here. And on LinkedIn, anyone's business, anyone's potentially your client. So I get me people say, I can't get any leads at the moment, can't get any leads. It's like, why can't you get any leads? Well, you're just looking in London. That way you can't get any leads, or just in Paris, or just in Madrid. It's like, well, what about the rest of the world? It's all on LinkedIn. Oh, I don't know how to reach them on LinkedIn. And then they start a conversation about Sales Navigator and social selling. And it's like, we are in a global economy, and nothing has proved that more this pandemic, when everything's equalized. You can do business in San Francisco. You can do business in Moscow. You can do business in Hong Kong because it's all on LinkedIn.
I'm getting goosebumps, man. Just because, Life Hacks with Mac, as an example, came about because I didn't want to have the conventional type of conversation or networking. Because I find even on Zoom, you're having these great network meetings, but people that are invited to certain network events get invited because of their geographic location.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that is because I have no idea. And the old school of thinking and our boundaries, there's a subconscious restriction with so many people. And I love the fact that you've just covered that, because many of our business, unless you're a trade where you're a plumber and you could, going down to Sydney to fix a tap, maybe not quite in the, the margins might not be there.
If you're a coach, as we talked about earlier, you can do coaching online. If you're doing marketing, you can do marketing online. If you're doing anything on the cloud, you can do it online. So therefore, what's stopping you, unless you are physically doing something but I would argue even like a chef, for example, if a chef says to me, oh, my restaurant closed down, but there's no other jobs in London. It's like, well, why are you just looking at London? Why aren't you looking at San Francisco? Why aren't you looking at Singapore? Why aren't you looking at Sydney? It's like, well, I don't know where to start. Well, why don't you go on LinkedIn, find someone in a restaurant over there who needs a chef, and then basically go to Sydney. It's like, but I think that's the difference between people, a mentality, people who are expats like myself, who left the UK like 12 years ago. I started off by leaving Newcastle to go to London, which my parents and my family thought was a big step. And I'm going, look at it now, going, well, it's like this much comparative to Singapore. And then people, when I was approaching 40, I basically went, okay, it's now or never I come to Singapore. And there's definitely a mentality when I meet other expats here and in Hong Kong and even in Zurich, for example, basically between expats and locals. Expats have the globe. The world is my oyster, whereas locals think, well, I'm just going to have this little bit here and that's it.
Yeah.
They're also the least happiest because they're the most frustrated because their market is this big, when in fact their market is actually that big. And part of my job is to basically enlighten them about how you can actually reach anybody, especially if you're an entrepreneur where your service and what you do travels. And even the plumber, to go back to your earlier thing, if basically they said, well, we want the best plumber in the world to do a fantastic talk in Sydney about how to be the best plumber in the world, get on a plane and we'll pay you $10,000 to do so and write a book at the same time, people go, oh yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? But a lot of people go, no, I don't want to get on a plane and go to Sydney and be the best plumber in the world. Just be the best plumber in I don't know, Hampstead or something. So what's your viewpoint? Are you a global person or are you a more parochial person?
And this is interesting because I've had a lot of people from different trades and different industries that I've dealt with through business coaching, where the mental restriction to geographic location has been an interesting thing to play with, because even if, as an example, somebody in one of our groups who's fantastic online with marketing locally has a lot of expats that he does end of life services for. And just what you covered in the last 5 to 10 minutes would open up the globe from a client perspective, because now all the expats that are living in, how many are in Spain? And are you on LinkedIn in Spain? Like, half of Britain's there. Trying to shift them back.
I wish they were there.
Or wish they were there right now. So and there's so many countries. Every country has its expat, community.
Totally.
So you could still do business locally with international clients that have local interest.
Precisely.
It's just thinking outside the box.
It's mentality. When I was an entrepreneur in London, all my clients came from London. Literally, I couldn't get a client in Europe at all. But I didn't try because I was in London. Oh, you just do business in London. So when I came to Singapore, and the first thing they said to me was basically, your market is the whole of Asia Pacific. I'm going, I don't know anybody in Asia Pacific. What do I do? It's like, and I literally didn't know. And that's why I started using LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, I could reach people in China and Indonesia and Philippines and India and Thailand and Australia just by searching on LinkedIn and going, oh, I can write to you. And you see my personal profile and I've looked at your personal profile and we have a meeting. And whether that's a physical meeting or even then I was doing Zoom meetings, or not Zoom, but whatever the phone call was, Skype at the time. It used to be the time you just use Skype meeting. And basically you have a different mentality. We're a small country here in Singapore. We're like 5 million people. We're the size of North London. We're literally miniature. But we have the best airport in the world for a reason. They're probably smaller than North London. But we have the best airport in the world and the best airline in the world. And there's a reason for that, because we like to travel across the whole of Asia or the whole of America or the whole of Europe. And we can get there very easily. And it's all about the mentality here. It's very entrepreneurial. And it's very much about you can travel to do business. And the government here even incentivize you to open up offices outside of Singapore because they know they just can't have the market of Singapore.
The opportunities, just the way you've structured that right now, and I'm looking at coaches, teachers, anybody who does anything online. When we are all fighting for the local pool of clients, and yes, you say, okay, I just want 1%, but you're still restricted because there's only so many people in your locality. When you go, I just want 1% globally, that number exponentially grows. And all of a sudden there is no lack. There is no limiting.
Totally. All my clients here are actually looking globally. No one here says to me, I only want to target Singapore. But I was on a call today, for example, with a coach here who's an entrepreneur, and his clients all over the world. And we were just talking about how he can use Sales Navigator and Smart Links to basically target people in America and Europe even more effectively now. And he can do coaching and he can do his inspirational talks, for example, online, just like he could do when he could travel. But he's never constricted his market merely to Singapore, because he came here from America. He came here from, different country, and his mentality was, well, I can target anyone. I just like living in Singapore for various reasons, from tax to weather.
So you've just mentioned something, and if I don't pick up on it, I'm sure people watching are going to get really annoyed with me. You've mentioned Sales Navigator. You've mentioned a few of the tools that LinkedIn provide.
Yeah.
And the majority of people have the free account.
Right.
What is your suggestion? If you want to build a global business and have a global reach, what is the best tool? So as I mentioned, we've got those two schools of people at the moment. You've got those who are trying to rekindle and grow their business and revive it. And then you've got those that are in a good position that have got the cash flow, but they're just not sure which tools to use effectively. So if you could answer that question for both.
Sales Navigator team, Sales Navigator team, Sales Navigator team. Literally, don't buy premium because it's useless and it's the same price as Sales Navigator Pro. Don't buy Pro because it doesn't have Smart Links, and Smart Links is the key to how you use Sales Navigator. Don't buy Recruiter because Recruiter doesn't have half the functionality of Sales Navigator team. So buy Sales Navigator team. It has 10 times the functionality of all the other premium platforms on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn do make this very complicated, and I don't know why they do it, but they make it. That's partly why I've written books about how the best one to actually use, and it's Sales Navigator team, because Sales Navigator team allows you to create target lists. It allows you to find who's actually active on LinkedIn, because most people are not active on LinkedIn. They're registered, they're not active. So you've got to find those 300 million out of the 700 million actually actively using it on a monthly basis. Only 100 million are using it on a daily basis. So it's the mass majority, and that's what you need to find. But you can, using Sales Navigator team, you can find out who's posted, who's changed jobs, who's actually got a premium, who's an open profile, which basically means that they're someone who said, please contact me. Because there are people who are premium who basically are not open profile. Don't contact them. They don't want to be contacted. For whatever reason, they're on LinkedIn, paying the subscription, and they're switched off open profile. It's like, why would you do that? I don't understand why you do that. You might just take yourself. Why would you do that? I don't know. They're antisocial on a social media platform. I love it. I contact them and they say, how dare you contact me? Take me off your list, and say, you're not on a list, you're on LinkedIn. And you've opted in because your privacy settings actually say you opted in. This is how you opt out. And they go, oh, I'm sorry. And then they actually realize you can actually opt out. But it's like, well, why? You can opt out, you can take off their profile, you can stop connections, you can stop people. It's like you might as well be in hermit mode. Literally, there's literally no point in doing that.
That's like going to a rock concert and saying, I don't like music.
Precisely. It's completely pointless. To me, it's antisocial. Why would it be on LinkedIn if you don't want people to contact you? Or why would it be? You can just say, I'm not interested. Or now LinkedIn have that AI where basically you just press the button. It says, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not interested. That's all you need to do. It'd take you 1 second to do that. So, or you just ignore it. I mean, it's like, that's what's really, really annoying about some people on LinkedIn. They don't embrace the spirit of networking. So you're targeting the 100 to 300 million people who are actually using it, who are looking at their engaging, who are open-minded and listening to potential offers, opportunities, partnerships, looking at ways to invest in you or find you, looking for clients. And they're the ones you need to target. And you can use Sales Navigator team and the data that allows to find who's active and want to do business with you.
Now, my next question was, how do you use this tool? And you've just told us. So
it's also in my book.
I think
I've also done lots of tutorials about it on LinkedIn.
Okay, so we're going to have to share those tutorials and go and get the book. If you haven't got it already, go and get the book.
And I've even written a book called Social Selling Mastery for Entrepreneurs, which is on Spotify, it's on Apple Music and Amazon. If you subscribe to Spotify, this is not a money generating thing for me. You can literally go there for free and listen to it for free. It's on streaming. So you can listen to my Social Selling Entrepreneur. So basically just go there. You've already subscribed to it. Hopefully you're paying $10 or whatever it is a month for it. And basically you can listen to lots of podcasts, lots of books there, but I give you tips about how to use Sales Navigator. But Sales Navigator team is what you need to do, because that's the way to generate leads across the entire world on LinkedIn.
So you've just touched on something very, very key, because on LinkedIn in general, with the free or freemium accounts, a lot of the time you're engaging with people that aren't even active, or
Yeah,
thinking
correct.
that you are.
Correct.
And I mean, the simple way of doing it is going onto somebody's profile and having a look at if they've posted anything, and
Or
more
even
often than
liked
not,
something.
or even
Yeah.
like any
Yeah.
activity on the activity
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, you could be feeling rejected because nobody's responding to you, and you're reaching out and they're not getting back to you. They're not responding to your messages. But in actual fact, if it's like me and I had 2 profiles and one's 10 years old,
Yeah.
I started responding in the last couple of weeks to people that sent me messages in 2014 and 2015 because I asked LinkedIn to merge my accounts. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm going, like 1,000 unread messages. I'm like, where has this all come from? And the responses have been priceless. Like, wow, Mac, like 7 years? Like, so really important to actually have tools to
Yeah.
cut out all that pain of you thinking, you could be doing all the right actions,
Yeah.
but if you're shooting in the dark, you're never going to hit your targets.
The other thing that people should use if they're really serious about lead generation, about finding who's active on LinkedIn, is Smart Links. And Smart Links is part of Sales Navigator team, and that's where you share a document. So I share my services, for example. So every time I contact somebody or someone contacts me or they're interested, I send them my Smart Link from Sales Navigator team. I can then tell if they click on it. I can tell how many times and for how long, how many minutes they spend on it, and then I contact them. I don't contact people who don't click on that because it's pointless. So if you look at my profile, I know you're active. So I'll send a message to you. Thanks for looking at my profile. Here's my services. And it's on a smart link. I can tell if you looked at my profile and you click the smart link, and then I do a follow-up message to those who click on the smart link. Because if you didn't click on the smart link, you're not interested. So it's about following the data. You can use the data on LinkedIn to find out who's active and who wants your service. And you are social selling. You're not hard selling because they're looking at your profile. They're looking at your smart link.
So you're engaging with those who engage with you.
Precisely. They are doing the work. You're just providing the tools, the content, the services on LinkedIn for them to find you.
It doesn't by any chance show you how long it takes somebody to figure out how to print the document in the link.
No, but I have had some strange one where it's like an hour. Okay, there's only 5 slides. It can't take you an hour to do this. Where have you gone? You're watching Breaking Bad or something else. You're doing this. It's like.
So yeah, if you've noticed me looking through some of the content you shared with me, that was why it took me long to get through.
Yeah, it popped up this morning. Yeah, it's like, oh, Mac's looking at that again. That's interesting.
I was sitting there going, "Where's print on this thing, man?" I still like the conventional paper stuff. So touch and feel, So I'm gonna have to get a hard copy of your book because I like highlighting and very old school.
You put tabs in those white yellow tabs in, do you? Just like this.
I'm not even going to show you. Oh dear. But hey, whatever works for you, I guess. So, I mean, you've just opened a whole new world for many people watching this, because a lot of people watching this would have thought, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm sending messages, I've sent out 1,000 connections and only 10 of them have got back to me. And LinkedIn doesn't work because I don't get any response. The only people who reach out to me are recruiters, and it's an interesting thing because there's a balance, or at least I don't know, and I want your opinion here, of people taking things personally because it's a platform. They take it personally with the messaging, blah, 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 and the interaction. And why, as you mentioned earlier, why have you connected with me? All that kind of, but then at the same time, we're actually looking for that personal connection.
Yeah.
But they are two separate things. What are your thoughts on that and how to...
I mean, you have to have a bit of a thick skin. I mean, it's business at the end of the day. Not everyone's going to like you. I mean, I deliberately polarize opinions. So in my Mohawk, I get Americans, particularly Americans, saying, why are you wearing a Mohawk? I'm offended by your Mohawk. I'm a Mohawk, so nothing to do with work at all. I have to basically try and explain to them how personal branding works, marketing works, create attention, have an awareness, the whole kind of, it's better to create attention and have a conversation than not create any attention at all because you can't have a conversation. But they get really offended because they basically think that this is not the way you dress. yes, you have to wear a suit and a tie and this kind of, it's like, oh my God, I'm going back 25 years here. I haven't worn a suit and a tie since I worked at the Times in London. It's like, and I had to. And it's like your personal branding is absolutely key. But whilst you have people like Elon Musk, for example, who's a great example of someone who basically says, well, screw it. I'm doing a great job here. I'm sharing great content. I'm putting my personal brand out there. You either love it or you hate it. But he's got as many detractors as he has like advocates. And that's what you want on LinkedIn. Basically, you want to create a polarizing content strategy where you're creating debate. You're saying, yes, I totally agree with you. And other people going, no, I totally disagree with you. So I'll give you a great example. Someone posted this week that they basically said they didn't like the green button that said open to work on people's profiles, because basically, and this was their argument, and they said that basically attracted people to pitch these people coaching services, recruitment services, that kind of thing. And I said, but it also enables them to get a job. And it's like, I was in a vast majority. I was being bombarded by, they were all Americans. I was being bombarded by Americans going, no, well, you're talking rubbish. You're rubbish. This is complete rubbish. And I was saying, well, if you don't put open to new opportunities on your headline, if you don't put open to work and put your little green thing up, how does someone know you're looking? And they said, well, recruiters know because you put it, you're open for recruitment. And I said, I'm a CEO. I recruit. How do you figure out that? 99% of people on LinkedIn are CEOs of businesses who are recruiting, but they're not recruiters. Like those recruiters work for big multinationals. I said, why are you talking as if everyone on LinkedIn is a multinational recruiter? They're not. They're actually SMEs make up the vast majority of businesses in London, in Britain, in America, in Singapore, in Asia. If you want to impress those people, you can't just put on that little open to work just for recruiters. Otherwise, CEOs like me don't see it. So what is the downside of putting that up there? Yeah, you might get the odd thing, person pitching you, odd coach. Just say, I'm not interested. That's all you have to do. I'm not interested. But the upside is you might get seen by somebody. Wow, he's got great experience and he's looking for a new opportunity, which means he can start straight away. Fantastic. I'll reach out to him and he'd get a job. And you've got to let people know you actually open to opportunities. Otherwise, how do people know? But my point is, I was in a vast majority. I was literally, no one was defending me. So I had 90 comments I had against me, against my one. So I basically, but you have to stand up for what you believe. And I personally believe you have to be more self-promoting. You have to push yourself out there. And it's business. It's not personal. It is business.
It's one of the toughest lessons I've learned in life is, one of my previous directors, when I left the company, I worked for this big multinational. And I couldn't understand. I did all the hard work in the background, but I was one of those guys who I just kept quiet and just did the work.
Yeah.
And when I left, I was like, hey, man, I don't get it. Like, why didn't I get these promotions and all these things? And she goes, well, why should you have? And I said, but I did this, and this. And she's like, was that you? And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. She goes, I didn't know that was a great piece of work. And you did this and you did this. I was like, I didn't know it was you. She goes, if you don't blow your own trumpet, nobody else is going to.
Precisely. In my books, I talk about being more American and less English. Because Americans have no problem with self-promoting, pitching. They do all that. English people and Asians go, oh, no, I couldn't do it. No, it's part of the team. And it's like, well, if you really do want to give all that up and let somebody who basically is self-promoting win your business, then yeah, it's part of the team. Stay in the background. But if you actually want to win that job, win that client, win that investment, you have to self-promote. And again, it's business. What's the worst that can happen? You don't get that job. You don't get that investment, but actually you have more chance of doing it because at least people know what you do and how you do it. So, be more American in that context and be less English.
Wow. Say it like it is. I like that. And that coming from somebody who's actually from Britain.
Originally, yes, but I'm now Singaporean. I'm a Singaporean citizen. I gave up my UK passport.
Why you wouldn't be self-promoting.
Precisely. I mean, they're very, Asians are very, it's all about the team and, we get behind the team leader and the whole thing. So basically, there's opportunity. I think expats in general are more likely to be out there. When I was in London, I didn't need LinkedIn because I knew my little niche in London, for example, and I didn't need to get out there. But when I came to Singapore, I didn't know anybody, so I need to make more of an effort, share more content, show justification about why should someone trust me? And I still get that now. People Europe and America go, well, you're from Asia, you're from China. Normally I get, you're from China. It's like, really? Why do you Google where Singapore is? It's not in bloody China. Like, we're a long way from China, actually. And it's like, but they say, oh, why would I employ someone from Asia to do my work? Well, these are the reasons why. My 1,600 recommendations, my 4 best-selling books, I'm a Forbes contributor, X, Y, and Z. My business is going for 8 years. Oh, okay, then. And that's why you have to be constantly putting out there your social proof, what you do, how you do it, why people should trust you, your records, you know, your recommendations, particularly key. Get other people to talk about you as much as basically you talk about yourself. Then it's not just you saying you're good, it's actually other people saying you're good. And they can check out those recommendations. That's the key to LinkedIn. Don't put them on your website, because nobody goes to your website. Especially that list, it's like the 5th tab down, the 6th tab, and it says my recommendations. It says anonymous. It's like, really? You got anonymous recommendations, so basically you made it up.
Yeah.
Whereas on LinkedIn, it says who did it, and you can click through to that person and say, hey, Mac, you worked with Chris. What was it like working with Chris? And they can actually ask you, and that's the whole point. LinkedIn's all about doing business, and the recommendations enables you to get your social proof to make sure you make a good decision of a service provider.
Again, you summarized that recommendation, the importance thereof, because the connection, the ability to firstly see the credibility, see the, you know, who they are, what their background is, whether you relate to them or not. And I find, you know, when you go through people's recommendations, you go, oh, okay, that's interesting. That guy from that company. And it changes everything compared to going onto a review site and it's Richard or anonymous, as you say, and you kind of go, did they write that themselves?
Precisely. And even things like Google and Facebook, half of those are made up, half of those are bots, half of those aren't real. You can't check them out. Yeah. So basically, the only way to look at actual real recommendations is to look on LinkedIn, because someone's actually had to create a proper profile, have a profile, and then recommend somebody. And that's the key. You can't fake it, basically.
So I'm conscious of time, and I still have at least 8 questions I want to squeeze in to give real value to everybody, because you know, there's some really key ones. But this recommendation thing, you have 1,600.
Yeah.
What is the best way to go about getting those recommendations? Because
asking.
People are busy.
Asking. That's it. Asking. I meet so many people basically go, whoa, you got 100 recommendations on your website. You got none on your LinkedIn. Oh, yeah, so I haven't had time to ask anybody, or I haven't asked anybody. I don't know if they'd give it to me on my LinkedIn. It's go, why not? They gave it to you on your websites. Why wouldn't you ask them on LinkedIn? Or basically people just say, I just haven't asked. It's like, well, but your whole business is based on you, especially if you're a coach or a speaker, your personality, your personal branding. If you don't ask your customers to recommend you, why should anyone else employ you? So literally, what's the worst that can happen? You ask them, they don't give it. That's the worst that can happen. But 9 times out of 10, if you ask somebody nicely, please, can you recommend me for the contribution I made for you or my talk? They'll go, I'll be delighted to, absolutely love to. Now, only about 30% of those people actually do it, because people are lazy, people don't know how, people are basically busy. But basically, people, if you ask them, you get about 25%, 30% of people who say, yeah, no, delighted to, of course, Ollie, fantastic talk, or I love what you do. Of course, I'd love to do that. People, but if they don't get asked, they ain't going to volunteer it.
So a quick question, because you have multiple businesses.
Yeah.
Now, I know many, whether it be coaches, teachers, etc., will also, you know, a lot of coaches come about because they go, hey, you know, I'm really good at this type of business, and now I'm going to become a business coach as well. And you go on LinkedIn, and it's, you know, similar to mine, I guess, where you know, I run my own security company, but I also do business coaching.
Yeah.
Should you have 2 separate profiles?
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. I mean, basically, if you have 2 profiles, you'll be lucky, but normally LinkedIn deletes a profile. They'll basically identify you as saying, you've got 2 profiles, we're going to remove this profile unless you want it merged. Which one do you want removed? And they have AI looking at that and making sure it doesn't happen. So you can't have 2 profiles. So basically, you have to make the most of 1 profile. But like you say, if you have all your different jobs done there, there's no problem with that at all. Most people are used to these days having a portfolio career, or having serial. entrepreneurs have several companies. I do based on those companies, and you can do the same thing. The security customers will recommend you for security, your coaching ones recommend you for coaching, your leadership ones for leadership, your podcast ones for podcast. I mean, literally, people are used to that now. No one's just got one job now. Even if they just do some non-profit stuff, or even if they contribute somewhere else, no one's got one job.
Again, just answered so succinctly. I just love, you just cut to the chase, man. Awesome. Are you up for kind of a serial of one-liner questions and give me a quick answer?
Go for it.
So let's have a look over here. Who's the number one person that you follow for LinkedIn information?
Ah, God, that's a good question. Who's the number one person? Well, to be honest, and to be frank, and to blow my own trumpet, no one knows more about LinkedIn than I do.
Oh,
seriously, I tried to find other people who call themselves LinkedIn experts, and I look at their profile. They've got like 10 connections, or they've got 10 recommendations, or they haven't written a book, or they're not a Forbes contributor. They haven't completed their profile. Correct. So they might have 100,000 followers, for example, but only got like five recommendations, and maybe their content doesn't get any engagement, for example.
Okay. Next one. If you're coming up to 30,000 connections,
yeah,
what is the best way to leverage your followers? Like,
so that's a brilliant question.
Followers versus connection. Like what?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. So basically, you shouldn't accept all your invitations. You should basically make sure that the people you invite and who basically you accept are people you want to do business with in the short term, the mid term, and the long term. And then you have to start culling people. So I get rid of basically a couple of hundred people every single week because basically they're part of a community or a target audience I used like a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago that's no longer relevant. And I then accept people who basically are now people I do want to go after. So I teach the LinkedIn algorithm slightly different than I had it before. So what you should do is switch your button on LinkedIn to follow. So you can do that in the privacy settings under blocking and following. You can basically switch it to follow so people can then follow you because it's easier to follow you than it is to basically connect. That way you build up your followers and your followers see your content. So you need followers to basically elevate your content. But your connections are important because then you can actually talk to these people like their first connection, so you can actually message them, but also because you can get into their connections and their connections. And that's phenomenally important, especially if you're an entrepreneur across the whole of the world. So basically you should basically switch it to follow, basically start culling your connections and basically do not accept everybody. So we actually have a rejection script. So all our clients and myself, I have rejection script. My rejection script is very simple. It says, I can't connect with you anymore because I've hit my 30,000 limit, but I'd love you to follow me. And it's as simple as that. And I have to be very ruthless about who I connect with. So I only accept about 30% of people who basically people I want to do business with, or you can help me, for example, or I can help them. If I can't see a way that I can help them. So if you're an engineer from India and you just want to get a job in Singapore, I can't help you because I don't do any engineering. I don't know anybody who does any engineering. I really can't help you. And I can't see a scenario where I can help you or you can help me. So I will just ask you to follow me instead. You have to be ruthless on LinkedIn.
So you've answered my next question, which is, should I accept every connection?
No. Be discerning.
Good. How productive are having business groups or
forget about them. They're useless. LinkedIn killed them a few years ago. LinkedIn literally killed them a few years ago. It's like company pages. Company pages are useless comparative to having your own personal page. So promote your company through your personal page, not your company page. But groups are completely useless. Do it in the feed and post in the feed and nowhere else. Don't do articles, do posts, do short posts, which is 1,300 characters. Basically focus on your feed. Do not do groups. Literally, LinkedIn killed groups a few years ago.
So if I go and I have a group of 1,500 people, and they're all my local community because it's who I want to influence.
Yeah.
If I post in there, will that whole group see that post?
No. That's what I mean. LinkedIn killed it. LinkedIn killed basically groups a few years ago. It used to be very active about 5 years ago, but then they basically restructured them and refigured them because they were being spammed to death, and basically they killed them. You look at the engagement of most groups now, there's literally no engagement. There's nobody liking, nobody commenting. There's nobody in those groups.
Okay, good. So there goes an interesting strategy that I was testing at the moment. So thank you very much.
Don't waste your time. Focus on your content. Focus on your content and you will get more engagement.
Good. So the next one is posts. What makes up a good post? Because I find the ratios move.
Yeah.
So one day I'll get like one comment to 1,000 views, and then the next day I'll get like one comment to 5 views, and especially over the last 2-3 weeks, I've seen a post that's very similar to one I did 3 weeks ago. Now I do like 500 views, but 3 weeks ago I did like 5,000 views. Why is there such a...
So that's a very good question. So basically, the more personal your posts are, the more engagement you'll get, because LinkedIn promotes authentic posts, original posts about you. So basically, if you create content and basically just share it, you're not going to get that many views unless you put an introduction to it, make it personal. But it has a picture of you, a video of you, an infographic from you, then you'll get thousands of views basically, and hopefully lots of engagement as well. But you also have to use hashtags, you have to use influencers. So for example, if I wanted to talk about security and I tagged you, then you get notifications saying, oh, Chris has tagged you, mentioned you in a post. You then comment, I get into your feed, you then mention somebody else, get into his feed. And that's why you have to answer every single comment. You have to basically engage, and you have to make it provocative and thought-provoking. Otherwise it just becomes part of the feed. So it's part of a content marketing strategy. You can't do that the whole time. You've got to have a polarizing or a thought-provoking post that's personal every single day. And then you combine that with stuff about your company, some smart links, some curated stuff about your industry, which is useful to your followers, but ultimately it's your personal post that had the most amount of engagement. And don't repost. So basically resharing, which is where you see somebody else's post on your company and then you reshare it, is the way to make your post go invisible. Because literally LinkedIn make those invisible. You'll see on the engagement, you'll see someone with 100,000 followers and they basically did a personal post and they got like 100,000 views, and then they reshared their company and got no views because they got no likes, no comments, no shares, because LinkedIn goes, no, you posted that already on your company page. This is not original, at the bottom of the algorithm. Whereas original posts get promoted to the top because they see you made effort. Again, they reward you. It's gamification. They reward you for spending effort on your content. So do not reshare, write original posts.
Okay, so you've mentioned the algorithm, and LinkedIn have changed their strategy over the last 2-3 years quite a few times by the looks of it. Now,
I think daily. I think they change it daily.
so because of that, what do you think the longevity of LinkedIn is or isn't?
I mean, LinkedIn's in a unique position where it's the only global social media platform in the world that's in China. It's the only social global media platform in the world that does not take political advertising. It's the only social media platform in the world that's business. So basically, LinkedIn has no rivals. Basically, they can only screw it up themselves, basically, because it has nothing. Because basically, there is nobody to challenge LinkedIn from a business point of view, or from a it's in China point of view, or from a doesn't do politics point of view. So basically, if you want that kind of like, that safety zone of basically, I want to do business, don't want to talk politics or religion, basically you can talk business on LinkedIn, and you can do business in China through LinkedIn.
So you think LinkedIn will still be here in 5 years?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Many other platforms will not be, or will be very, very different, but LinkedIn will be because it's the only one available. What's the alternative? What's the competition? There is no competition. There's local competition, there's local sites, local things, but there's no global one. There's no global networking business platform in the world that's in every single country. None.
Wow.
Apart from LinkedIn.
So you've answered that question, which will make quite a few people very happy because of all the effort they're putting in and wondering about, hey, is this going to disappear?
So it's not going to be like, for example, what they have things with TikTok at the moment where Trump's going to ban it and other people are banning it. And if you were a TikTok star, you'd be really annoyed at the moment. Go, my business is going, well, no, I spent all this time learning about how to do TikTok. And basically now you're going to be banned and you're completely screwed. And it's the same thing with Facebook. When Facebook basically changed the algorithm, or you have to be paying to do it. LinkedIn's completely different. Completely different. First of all, it's an American app, so it's not going to get banned by America, which means it won't be banned by the rest of the world. And it's in basically all the countries of the world, and it doesn't do politics. And I can't overestimate how important that is, because basically not doing politics means basically it's a sanitized platform. It's a safe platform to do business.
So this is not part of my questions, but because you've just said that, you say no politics, but we have seen recently with whether it be Brexit, the current pandemics, BLM, all these different social, political conversations that have been happening.
Yeah.
Should we be having those conversations on LinkedIn?
Well, if you want engagement, then no. if you want engagement, then no. I mean, I see this every single time. I used to do one about, Brexit, because obviously I was not in favor of Brexit at all. One of the reasons I left, because I could see that the way it was going. But every time I did, no one cared. But more to the point, an interesting one, I did the one the other day, for example, about Lewis Hamilton and his personal branding about Black Lives Matters. And basically, I tried to get people to engage, and they wouldn't engage. And the reason why is because they work for a multinational company, and they don't want people to say, but he commented on Black Lives Matter. That means he likes Black Lives Matter. That means X, Y, and Z. So basically, people do not want to comment on something political when they basically know that their peers, their bosses, their future bosses, their investors, their clients can see them. Especially if you're not an entrepreneur, you basically go, oh, do I really want to comment on this? Maybe not. So basically, it just kills it. So politics that's why there's no political advertising on LinkedIn either. So basically, it's a completely different platform. And you'll know this. And you can also take out the posts. If I see any posts about Trump, for example, I immediately report it to LinkedIn and say, I don't want to see this in my feed. As a result, I don't see anything about Trump in my feed. So you can basically teach the algorithm to do that. Yeah, you can teach the algorithm to do that. And I put enough in there for LinkedIn to go, no, don't serve him anything else with Trump, because he basically just ignores it. And then if the Americans want to talk about that, they can go and talk about it on their own, basically.
So you've touched on a really important point there, because in the background, especially with the fact that the majority of people are employed on LinkedIn, and therefore their engagement is not driven by their, and you'll see some people say, my personal opinion in their status or in their profile, because you need to remember that a lot of the people that are on there, because they're employed, will be subject to a HR
totally. Their contracts will say, totally. Oh, totally. Their contracts will actually say it.
So
you have to think
even
twice.
Though you want the engagement, 80% of people are not going to be in a position where they can.
That's why you should never do things around politics or religion or things that kind of controversy, because you're going to get less engagement as a result of it, because you're only going to get people who don't really care whether their boss thinks about it or they don't have a boss. And so that's why you don't do politics on LinkedIn.
So Twitter, Facebook, go for it over there.
And you're welcome to it.
Okay. So views.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Because everybody has a different interpretation of views.
Oh, no, I mean, LinkedIn basically says it's 3 seconds. So basically, if someone looks at your post for 3 seconds, it's a view. If they look at your video for 5 seconds, it's a view. So basically, you want to get views. You want to get the views up. So basically, it means that someone stopped. They haven't just gone like that on the feed. They've stopped. So I'll give you an example. I did a post last night about some Singaporean entrepreneurs, for example. It got, this morning when it came in, it had 10,000 views, but it only had 1 comment. Because basically people looked at it, thought it was interesting, but didn't feel interesting enough to actually comment. Or they were Asian and they didn't feel like they needed to comment or wanted to comment, because a lot of Asians don't comment as much as, say, other people, for example. So basically, a view is someone where you've actually stopped them putting this track in the feed and they're actually viewing it or they're reading it. And that's what you should be judging your content by, because only about 3 or 4% of people on LinkedIn bother posting. And that's really important. If you post, you're immediately a thought leader on LinkedIn, because 98% of people do not post on LinkedIn.
So that's the importance of posting. That's huge. So you've just clarified the whole views versus likes and engagements, because I hear this every day from people that I work with who say, I've just had a call from somebody who they've never liked any of my posts. They've never commented. But they phone me and they want to do business because they like my posts. So really,
I get it all the time. I get people saying,
hang up on those.
Yeah, I've been connected with you for 5 years. I've been watching your content, and they've never engaged me once, but then they want to do business at a certain moment in their time.
When the timing's right for them.
So it works because they're reading it, and you know they're reading it because your views are saying they're reading it, but you don't need to get lots of engagement, because there's an algorithm called 1990, which is across all social media, which is 1% of people on social media create. They actually do what you and I do. They post. 9% like, share, and comment. We need those to go viral. But 90% of people on all social media do nothing. And I actually think it's more for LinkedIn. They do nothing. They just scroll. They view. They're voyeurs. They basically do nothing but look at content. And they do even less on LinkedIn because it's business. And they're thinking, will my boss see this? So basically, you're trying to influence the 9%, not the 90%.
Massive differentiation and point there that I'll be sharing that. So again, sharing other people's posts, a no-go.
Correct.
because you're repeating content.
But engage on it. So if you do, like this guy who did this thing about the open to work, I engaged on his post. It's basically, that's a great way of making sure your profile goes up, people see you. I often engage in
engaging
Reid
in other
Hoffman's
people's posts.
Yes, very important, because you're part of the community there. So I engage in Reid Hoffman's post, or the CEO of LinkedIn, or Michael Dell, because I know I'm going to get in all their feed. People are there going to see it. And I get strange people coming to my profile because they've seen my post on Michael Dell's post, or my LinkedIn post on Reid Hoffman, or the CEO's post. And I can see exactly where those people have come from. So yeah, engage. It's community. It's like a networking. Engage. So create, but also engage. Be part of the community.
3 more questions. Tagging. Should you be tagging other people in a post?
Yes, without a shadow of doubt, but not Richard Branson. Because
he's not going to respond.
Basically, I've got 25 million followers. Really, they all engage. If you all tag me every single day, you're not going to see it. So basically, be realistic. Tag people are realists. I'll give you an example. I did a review of a book called The Reputation Game, which has 2 authors from the UK. I reviewed it on LinkedIn, put a video up there on LinkedIn, and I tagged them both on a Sunday. They're authors, they're not megastars. On a Sunday, that Sunday night, they both contributed and say, hey, Chris, thanks very much for reading my book. Thanks for reviewing it. Really, really fantastic video. And they both liked it as a result of it. They both commented. And I then get into their feed as a result of it. That's more realistic. I ask experts. If I know someone, for example, if I do a post, I know somebody who's got an opinion on this, I'll tag them and say, hey, what about this? And they get notification saying, Chris has mentioned you in this, and they can start doing, again, focused in it. But don't do the mega stars. Do people who actually write and actually are engagers and are basically experts in their field, or they are megastars and you contribute on their post, and then do that. I did that currently with someone very famous whose name I forget, who's got like 2 million followers, and I basically objected to the way he said that no one had a personal brand. So I went in there, yeah, but yes, they do have a personal brand, and I tagged him in my reply, and he replied. He basically said, oh, I like your opinion. Thanks very much, because everyone else has just agreed with me, and you've actually had a contrary opinion. And basically, because I tagged it in his post, he actually got notification, and then he replied to that. That's when you can do that.
You've answered the question and the question of that question. So again, one of the things that have come across, and I can carry on asking you questions, till the cows come home. But one of the things that has been very clear during our interview is, every single aspect, your eye for detail is, you don't assume things, you find out and you know specifics. Yeah. And you have very clear strategies, which I can see, people working with you are, clearly from your, the posts that people are putting out about having worked with you, you get results. You don't seem to have a BS cell in your body, which is pretty cool.
Not for Newcastle. We don't do bullshit in Newcastle. We call a coal a coal.
Absolutely. So, I want to wrap up, and I want to ask you how. Firstly, what is the typical client that is the perfect client that you would work with? Because by the sounds of it, you don't just work with anybody.
No, we work with entrepreneurs. I mean, literally 9 times out of 10, they're entrepreneurs. They're people like you and I, they're CEOs, they're founders of their own business. And 9 times out of 10, they don't have a marketing team. They don't have a sales team. They're doing the marketing. They're doing the sales. The other section of society we work with, individuals. So individuals like coaches, keynote speakers, individuals at a multinational who realize their personal brand is the way they get success, how they get headhunted, how they move country, how they get that better job. And that's what it's all about, individuals knowing about their awareness of their personal branding and knowing they can't do it themselves and they need help to do it. So they're the 2 sections we work for, individuals and entrepreneurs, and not really anybody else. So very, very, very niche.
Okay. So what is the best way? I know you're going to say LinkedIn.
All my business comes through LinkedIn. So basically contact me on LinkedIn, put Mohawk into LinkedIn, you'll find me. put black marketing, Chris Reed on, you'll
So
find me.
is that sending you a message directly going onto your company page?
So
or?
obviously I'm open profile. No, don't do company pages. Company pages, you can't do messages. Forget about company pages. Company pages are useless, completely useless. You got to target people so that.
But you have to
find
have
me
a
on
company
profile.
page just so it shows up the logo.
Yes, you do that, but it's like a hygiene factor. It's like having your own website. You don't actually use it. My website, basically, because I own the blackmarketing.com and mohawkmarketing.com, is to have those, but they drive people to my LinkedIn. And all my business comes through LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn by putting Chris J. Reed in or putting Mohawk in, and you will find me. And basically just send me a message, which anyone can, because I'm open profile. And then I can send you my smart link of our services, and you can have a look at it, and you can see it. Or you can look at my content and check out my smart links, because I share it on a daily basis, and you can see whether that's the kind of service you want. And then we can have a conversation.
You've blown me away with the amount of information you've shared. I mean, the value has just been endless. It hasn't stopped. So thank you very much. What is the one big thing that people should watch out for on LinkedIn or from you over the next kind of 12 months?
I mean, it's basically how this pandemic is going to make people realize their personal branding is living and breathing on this, on the laptop, on the mobile. And as soon as they get their head around that this isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon, that basically they have to invest in their personal branding, which will make themselves and their business successful. And if they don't do it, they can't really blame anybody else, because you're in charge of your LinkedIn.
Perfect note to finish on. Chris, I thank you so much for the value, for the information. I would urge everybody to go back, slow the video down, and listen carefully to every single point and take action. That is, for me, that's the main thing, because we can all get great advice, but if we don't do anything with it, it's pointless. So go and take some action, and connect with Chris. And let's see where life takes you and your business, and the stars are the limits, especially when you're working with the world's number one. So, Chris, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'm blown away. Excellent stuff. So that'll be the end of our interview today, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one with interviews with experts and life hacks with Mac.
Thank you.